Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're tackling something that strikes fear into the hearts of even seasoned backyard cooks, making the absolute best beef brisket. We're talking about smoking a full packer brisket. It is literally the Mount Everest of barbecue. It's a massive piece of meat, it's a 15 to 20-hour cooking marathon, and honestly, one wrong move can turn an expensive cut of beef into a dry pot roast. But hey, don't sweat it. Today, I'm your guide. We're going to conquer this mountain together, taking you from raw meat to that perfectly tender, melt-in-your-mouth slice, complete with a full recipe. Okay, let's dive right into this recipe roadmap. We've broken this marathon down into 5 logical steps. Prep, focusing on the trim and rub. Fire, looking at wood and temperature. The cook and the dreaded stall. The wrap, also known as the Texas crutch. And finally, rest and slice perfectly. Step 1, prep and rub. Let's start right at the base camp of our hero's journey. So when you buy a whole packer brisket, you're actually getting 2 distinct muscles joined by this thick seam of fat, which we call the decal. You've got the flat, which is that leaner, more uniform piece, and the point, which is thicker and super marbled with fat. Because they're just so different in thickness and fat content, some pitmasters actually prefer to separate them right off the bat so they cook more evenly. But even if you leave the whole shebang together, just understanding this anatomy is absolutely crucial for a great cook. Now, before we even think about seasoning, we gotta trim. Pro tip here, trimming is vastly easier when the meat is ice cold right out of the fridge. You'll want to take off any hard, waxy fat and that silvery membrane called silver skin. Why? Well, smoke won't penetrate them, and they aren't gonna render down in the heat anyway. But, and this is the golden rule, you must leave exactly a 1/4 inch of fat on the fat cap. As that marbling melts during that long cook, that specific 1/4 inch layer will baste the brisket from within. It keeps the meat incredibly juicy and infuses every single bite with flavor.
All right, now for the flavor. In Texas, a lot of purists stick to only coarse salt and black pepper, the classic Dalmatian rub. But if you want a complete, balanced recipe that builds an unbelievable crust, you really can't beat this rub from Dr. Jeff Saville at Texas A&M. You're going to mix canning salt, paprika, 2 kinds of pepper, onion and garlic powders, a kick of cayenne, and some brown and granulated sugar. Slather this generous mixture onto your trimmed brisket and leave it in the fridge overnight. Seriously, do not skip that overnight rest. It allows the salt to penetrate deep down into the beef, bringing out those incredible, natural umami flavors.
Moving on to step 2, fire, wood, and temperature. Listen, in authentic barbecue, smoke is not just a byproduct, it's an active ingredient. It's a thick layer of flavor that's just as important as your rub, and the wood you choose totally dictates the aroma and color. Post oak, that's your Central Texas classic. Burns clean, leaves a mild, slightly sweet taste that really lets the beef shine. Pecan gives you this beautiful nutty overtone, while cherry wood is fantastic for imparting a gorgeous deep mahogany color to the bark. Hickory brings deeper, stronger woody notes, but heed this warning. If you're relatively new to this, actively avoid mesquite. It's incredibly sharp and earthy. Actually, if you aren't careful, it will easily turn your 15-hour masterpiece super bitter. Now, your target temperature for the pit is a nice steady 225 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Low and slow is the name of the game here. And here's a vital piece of barbecue science for you. You do not want thick, billowy, white smoke. That white smoke is actually just steam and uncombusted gases, which can leave a really nasty creosote taste on the meat. You are looking for clean, thin, blue smoke. That subtle blue hue tells you the wood gases are burning cleanly at high temps, which translates to pure, sweet flavor. All right, step 3, the cook and the stall. So the meat finally goes onto the grates and the cooking phase begins. Everything is going great for a few hours, you're feeling good, but then you hit the most intimidating trial of the entire cook, the stall. Usually when the meat hits between 155 and 165 degrees Fahrenheit, the internal temperature just stops rising. It completely plateaus, sometimes for up to 5 hours. People tend to panic here. They top their thermometer, or worse, they recklessly crank up the heat. Don't do it. The stall is just basic physics. The surface moisture of the meat is evaporating, and just like human sweat cools our skin on a hot day, this evaporation cools the brisket. The meat is literally sweating, and it is completely normal. Step 4, the wrap, famously known as the Texas crutch. To power through that dreaded stall without drying out the meat, we use a magic solution called the Texas crutch. Now, what's really interesting about this is the difference between the wrapping materials. You could use heavy-duty aluminum foil, which acts exactly like a sauna. It traps all the steam, stopping that evaporative cooling dead in its tracks. It cooks the brisket the fastest, sure, but it will definitely soften your nice, crusty bark. On the flip side, wrapping in peach butcher paper allows the brisket to breathe just a little bit. It lets some steam escape while still catching the rendered fat. This gives you a vastly superior, crunchier bark while still helping you push past the stall. Once wrapped, your brisket goes right back on the smoker. The crucial part now is knowing exactly when to pull it off. You're targeting an internal temp of somewhere around 200 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. But remember, temperature is just a guideline. Texture is the law. When you slide your thermometer probe into the thickest part of the meat, there should be zero resistance. I'm talking none. It should feel exactly like sliding a hot knife into a jar of room temperature soft butter. That is when you know the collagen has fully broken down into silky, perfect tenderness. And finally, step 5, rest and slice perfectly. Honestly, these might be the most crucial steps of all. Look, if you pull that brisket off the pit and slice into it immediately, all those boiling internal juices are just gonna pour out onto your cutting board. Your 15 hours of hard work will result in dry, sad meat. You absolutely must rest it. Keep it tightly wrapped in its butcher paper or foil, wrap an old towel around it, and place it into a dry, airtight drink cooler. Let it sit in there for 1 to 3 hours. This slow cooling process allows the muscle fibers to relax and reabsorb all those rich juices, guaranteeing a moist, incredible bite. Now, the slicing itself? That is an art form. And looking closely at a cross-section of the meat brilliantly illustrates this. You can clearly see the alignment of the muscle fibers running parallel to each other. This is called the grain. If you slice in the same direction as these lines, the meat is going to be super chewy and tough. You have to identify the direction of this grain so you know exactly how to turn the meat and slice across it. Severing those long fibers is what makes the brisket completely tender. Grabbing a long, serrated knife, you want to firmly but gently saw through that beautiful dark mahogany bark. Don't just press straight down like you're cutting a block of cheese. Use a smooth sawing motion, kind of like cutting fresh bread. You're cutting at a 90-degree angle, perfectly against the grain. And thickness totally matters. According to the legends of Texas barbecue, you are aiming for slices that are exactly the width of a standard No. 2 pencil. Not too thick, not too thin. I love this quote from Texas Monthly barbecue critic Daniel Vaughn. He says, "In Texas, we celebrate great brisket by not messing with it. If it's done right, then you slice it pencil thick and slap it on a piece of butcher paper. It's naked, quivering, and vulnerable, so it has to stand on its own." That just hits the nail on the head. That's the beauty of this whole process. A perfectly executed brisket doesn't need to hide behind giant pools of sweet, sugary sauce. The salt, the pepper, the smoke, and the beef. They speak entirely for themselves.
And there you have it. You now possess the full recipe, the exact techniques, and the hard-won secrets of professional pit masters. From separating the flat and the point, to managing that clean blue fire, to surviving the stall with the Texas crutch. So what does this all mean for your next weekend cookout? The only question left is, will you fire up the smoker and conquer the Mount Everest of barbecue? Or will the stall conquer you? Thanks for joining this explainer. Get out there and start smoking.